Hello. Oh, Professor Pug, that's perfectly fine. Family first, right? Hey, Chris. Hey, Rocket J. I know. The hour flew by. I was like, oh, I got to get ready. Hey, Matt. Hey, Cold. Sorry, I haven't been around lately. Had a seizure and fell and broke my back in 2 places. Oh my gosh. Wow. Um, that is terrible. I'm sorry. Uh, I'd wondered kind of what had happened to you, so that I hadn't used your things yet. But I did kind of incorporate them in some things for the future, so hopefully that's still okay. Hey, Lynn, how are you? And Chris, glad you're here. I'm gonna pull it up on YouTube for when I get off YouTube. I can still see. You guys hear me okay? You guys hear me okay? Oh. Oh, cool. Sounds good. Hey, Tina. How are you doing? Hope you're well. So I needed a break from Greeno. So I just had to take a break from that guy. Like there's just so much that it gets to be unbelievable, and just like I can't just not cover the rest of it though, you know what I mean? Like I have to see it through. I would never be able to leave it unfinished, but I can allow myself a break from the monster. So that's what I did this week. Had a lot going on, and obviously it was a busy week for Indiana, with some new things coming out about the Delphi double murders of Abigail Williams and Liberty German. And of course, I, as many others, were looking into that. I had received the affidavit just before, a different one, but it's the same affidavit, they're court papers. So just prior to learning that the Murder Sheet podcast was going to be doing an episode and like releasing it to the public. And so it was interesting to read through that. And to be honest, I really don't think we have to keep it in its context of space and time. That was 2017. It's 2022, there are some things you can glean from it, just from they were moved. It was staged, which if, it was written by a FBI agent in behavioral sciences. So staged, it can be an important word, and it is different than posed, and you have to do some reading about that. But there's those things. So I just decided to research. My husband had given me like it's not really covered by any Navy SEALs. I did find an episode of a Joe Rogan Experience. I love that guy. And he talked about it with a Navy SEAL. I think his name is some Ambers. It has an F on the end or something like that. But anyways, but yeah, this Navy SEAL is up for parole soon. So I was kind of looking into that, and then I was like, I wonder how many thrill killing couples are out there, and what is the thrill killer? Like, what do those words mean? And I was shocked to find there are a lot of couples that kill for the sheer thrill of it. So I figured I would just highlight 5 of them, or try to. We'll see. This might end up having to be a part 2 because when I get engrossed in something and it interests me, it has to interest me. That's the main thing. Then I love it. it enjoys me to research, find documents, find, the case like appeals or whatnot, and research, like study that kind of stuff. I like doing that. And so it definitely caught my attention. So I figured I would dive into it tonight, and we can kind of see what we think about thrill killers. So without further ado, let's get moving. All right. So I wanted to go through, just basically let's just get some definition. So thrill, it's sudden feeling of excitement or pleasure. That's what the word thrill means. So a thrill kill is a premeditated or random murder that is motivated by the sheer excitement of the act. The major common denominator among those who commit thrill killings is that they usually feel inadequate and are driven by a need to feel power. This is a quote from Levine. To a certain extent, thrill killers may make their victims suffer so they can feel good. That's sad. Sadism is fairly common in thrill killings. The killer might torture, degrade, or rape his victim before he or she takes his or her life. They frequently have a ideal victim who has certain physical characteristics. What's a sadist? A sadist is someone who derives pleasure from others undergoing discomfort or pain. Individuals possessing sadistic personality tend to display recurrent aggression and cruel behavior. Sadism can also include the use of emotional cruelty, purposefully manipulating others through the use of fear, and a preoccupation with violence. What is masochist? Someone who enjoys pain or humiliation, or who derives pleasure from harming oneself or being harmed by others. So then sadomasochist or sadomasochism would be a person who enjoys both inflicting and receiving pain for sexual gratification. And I got all that from Wiki. Well, it's actually Wiktionary, but same thing. So our first murderous couple, I mean, you can't do a list like this without talking about Bonnie and Clyde. So I'm going to pull up an article here. I'll let you guys see it. What did I do with it? Oh, I see it. Hey, Lance, how are you? Okay, this is from FBI.com, and Bonnie and Clyde. She was just shy of 5 feet tall, all of 1,000 pounds, a part-time waitress and amateur poet from a poor Dallas home who was bored with life and wanted something more. He was a fast-talking, small-time thief from a similarly destitute Dallas family who hated poverty and wanted to make a name for himself. Clyde Champion Barrow and his companion, Bonnie Parker, were shot to death by officers in an ambush near Sales, Bienville Parish, Louisiana on May 23rd, which is tomorrow, 1934. All right. After one of the most colorful and spectacular manhunts the nation had seen up to that time. Barrow was suspected of numerous killings and was wanted for murder, robbery, and state charges of kidnapping. The FBI, then called the Bureau of Investigation, became interested in Barrow and his paramount late in December 1932 through a Singular bit of evidence, a Ford automobile, which had been stolen in Oklahoma. I'll just skip the words I can't pronounce. How about that? Never been good at pronouncing words. That is for damn sure. Was found abandoned near Jackson, Michigan in September of that year. At the city in Oklahoma, it was learned another Ford car had been abandoned there, which had been stolen in Illinois. A search of this car revealed it had been occupied by a man and a woman, indicated by abandoned articles therein. In this car was found a prescription bottle, which led special agents to a drugstore in Nacogdoches, Texas, where investigation disclosed the woman for whom the prescription had been filled was Clyde Barrow's aunt. Further investigation revealed that the woman who obtained the prescription had been visited recently by Clyde Barrow, Bonnie Parker, and Clyde's brother, L.C. Barrow. It also was learned that these three were driving a Ford car, identified as one stolen in Illinois. It was further shown that L.C. Barrow had secured the empty prescription bottle from a son of the woman who had originally obtained it. On May 30th of 1933, the United States Commissioner of Dallas, Texas, issued a warrant against Clyde Barrow and Bonnie Parker, charging them with the interstate transportation. From Dallas to Oklahoma of the automobile stolen in Illinois. The FBI then started its hunt for this elusive pair. Early years. Bonnie and Clyde met in Texas in January of 1930. At the time, Bonnie was 19 and married to an imprisoned murderer. Clyde was 21 and unmarried. Soon after, he was arrested for burglary and sent to jail. He escaped using a gun Bonnie had smuggled to him, was recaptured, and was sent back to prison. Clyde was paroled in February of 1932, rejoined Bonnie, and resumed a life of crime. In addition to the automobile theft charge, Bonnie and Clyde were suspects in other crimes. At the time they were killed in 1934, they were believed to have committed 13 murders. And several robberies and burglaries. Barrow, for example, was suspected of murdering 2 police officers at Joplin, Missouri, and kidnapping a man and woman in rural Louisiana. He released them near Waldo, Texas. Numerous sightings followed, linking this pair with bank robberies and automobile thefts. Clyde allegedly murdered a man in Hillsborough, Texas, committed robberies in Lufkin and Dallas, Texas, murdered one sheriff and wounded another in Stringtown, Oklahoma, kidnapped a deputy at Carlsbad, New Mexico, stole an automobile in Victoria, Texas, attempted to murder a deputy in Wharton, Texas, committed murder and robbery at Abilene and Sherman, Texas, committed murder at Dallas, Texas, abducted a sheriff and the chief of police in Wellington, Texas, and committed murder at Joplin and Columbia, Missouri. Wow. And then the crime spree begins. Later in 1932, Bonnie and Clyde began traveling from Raymond Hamilton, a young gunman. Hamilton left them several months later and was replaced by William Daniel Jones in November. Ivan Buck Barrow, brother of Clyde, was released from the Texas State Prison on March 23, 1933, having been granted a full pardon by the governor. He quickly joined Clyde, bringing his wife, Blanche. I love that name, Blanche. So the group now numbered 5 persons. This gang embarked upon a series of bold robberies which made headlines across the country. They escaped capture in various encounters with the law. However, their activities made law enforcement efforts to apprehend them even more intense. During a shootout with police in Iowa on July 29, 1933, Buck Barrow was fatally wounded and Blanche was captured. Jones, who was frequently mistaken for Pretty Boy Floyd, was captured in November of 1933 in Houston, Texas by the sheriff's office. Bonnie and Clyde went on together. On November 22nd, 1933, a trap was set by the Dallas, Texas sheriff and his deputies in an attempt to capture Bonnie and Clyde near Grand Prairie, Texas. But the couple escaped the officers' gunfire. They held up an attorney on the highway and took his car, which they abandoned in Miami, Oklahoma. On December 21st, 1933, Bonnie and Clyde held up and robbed a citizen in Shreveport, Louisiana. On January 16th, 1934, 5 prisoners, including Raymond Hamilton, were liberated from the Eastham State Prison Farm at Waldo, Texas by Clyde Barrow, accompanied by Bonnie Parker. 2 guards were shot by the escaping prisoners with automatic pistols, which had been previously concealed in a ditch by Barrow. As the prisoners ran, Barrow covered their retreat with bursts of machine gun fire. Among the escapees was Henry Methvin of Louisiana. The last months. I thought this was a way shorter article. I'm sorry. I saw 3 paragraphs is what I thought, but it's actually like 25. On April 1st, 1934, Bonnie and Clyde encountered 2 young highway patrolmen near Great Pine, Texas. Before the officers could draw their guns, they were shot. On April 6, 1934, a constable in Miami, Oklahoma, fell mortally wounded by Bonnie and Clyde, who also abducted a police chief whom they wounded. The FBI had jurisdiction solely on the charge of transporting a stolen automobile. Although the activities of the Bureau agents were vigorous and ceaseless, every clue was followed. Wanted notices furnishing fingerprints, photograph, description. I wonder why they would release the fingerprints to the public. I'm sorry, just little weird things of the past that I wonder about. I'm sure it has a really easy answer. It was released to all officers. The agents followed the trail through many states and into various haunts of the Barrow gang, particularly Louisiana. The association with Henry Methvin and the Methvin family of Louisiana was discovered by FBI agents, and they found that Bonnie and Clyde had been driving a car stolen in New Orleans. On April 13, 1934, an FBI agent, through investigation in the vicinity of Ruston, Louisiana, obtained information which definitely placed Bonnie and Clyde in a remote section of southwest that community. The home of the Methvins was not far away, and the agent learned of visits there by Bonnie and Clyde. Special agents in Texas had learned that Clyde and his companion had been traveling from Texas to Louisiana sometime, accompanied by Henry Methvin. Oh my gosh, how much more longer is this? The FBI and local law enforcement authorities in Louisiana and Texas concentrated on apprehending Bonnie and Clyde, whom they strongly believed to be in the area. It was learned that Bonnie and Clyde, with some of the Methvins, had staged a party at Black Lake, Louisiana on the night of May 21st, 1931, and were due to return to the area 2 days later. Before dawn on May 23rd, 1934, a posse composed of police officers basically just shot them to death. No questions asked. They didn't have time to return fire, nothing. And this was interesting. If you like this kind of thing, you can go here and click on these, and then you can look at any of the case files that the FBI has. There's a lot of different things that you can look up. One of them was it appeared to me when I was reading through some of these. I wonder why it's not letting me grab that now. That it was definitely, it seemed like they were caught because they kept, they wrote these letters. It's just so interesting to hear like history in the form of documents to me. I don't know why. It's just like a big nerd. Bonnie, as I told you before, is in a delicate condition. I would suggest that a something she be left for their appearance. So basically they kept what these documents were saying that I was reading earlier. And you can also, when you're on here, if like you find that hard to see, you can open them up in a different window and then you can view them easier. But yeah, it's pretty interesting. So, I mean, you can't really cover thrill killers without covering Bonnie and Clyde, you know? You just kind of got to touch on them a little bit. To me, they're really not that interesting. I did find some old footage that you can view on YouTube where it's a reenactment that was done within days after the ambush. But there's actually actual footage of their bodies after they were killed. And basically just kind of just interesting to see that old footage and just kind of how things have changed from back in the good old days of the 1930s. And definitely, if you are a fan of reading newspapers.com, you will notice that is a big there's a big shift in the criminal judicial system, especially from 30s, 40s, 50s to what we see today, where it feels like the criminals have way more rights, and you'll see it come up in these other cases, than the perpetrators. That was not the case back in the day. So that's just a different history lesson for a different day. And next, we're going to be talking about, well, these two next ones are evil. I'll tell you what. I had to find the right article I wanted to read. I think this one is the shortest. I don't know if you guys have heard of these guys, but I had not. So and I have pictures of her too. I'll show them here in a minute. David Birnie and Catherine Birnie. She changed her name actually. They were not married. They were kind of like my husband and I. Just kind of common law, I guess is what you would call it. But so he was born. Well, we don't need to know all that. So David and Catherine were an Australian couple who were serial killers. They murdered 4 women ranging in age from 15 to 31 in their home in the 1980s and attempted to murder a 5th. These crimes were referred to in the press as the Morehouse murders, not to be confused with the Moores murders by, is it the Wests? David? Is it, who was it? Fred and Rosemary West. I actually didn't touch on them, but True Crime Bloke has done a documentary on them if you would like to check out those two horrendous individuals. Again, that was Fred, and I think her name was Rosemary West. Really horrid, really wretched, and I just can't even talk about it. It just makes me sick to my stomach with what all they did, because it's to children, little children. It was just sick. These two were basically the Bonnie and Clyde of Australia. I mean, he like got escaped from prison and all, like, down to everything about it. Like, it was, except they were sexual sadists, and they were just literally, I've got a lot of links that I'm going to be putting in the description after the show for anyone that wants to learn more about these sickos. But this was my number 2. David was the eldest of 5 children. In his formative years, he lived in the semi-rural suburban of Wattle Grove, east of Perth. School friends and parishioners from the Wattle Grove Baptist Church of the period remember the family as particularly dysfunctional. Rumors abounded in the family's promiscuity, alcoholism, and they engaged in incest. When Birnie's parents had asked the local priest to conduct their wedding ceremony, he expressed concerns about them as individuals and as a potential couple. This is his parents. Broadly stating that he felt theirs was a union that could never lead to any good. An unusual and seemingly unsuited pairing. The father was a man of very small stature and unattractive appearance, while the mother was known for her coarse manner, language, and behavior, often exchanging sexual favors with taxi drivers as payment for fares. David Birnie's school friends also commented on the family home, saying that it was unkempt and filthy, with the family never having regular meals together, nor were meals prepared for the children by their parents. One school friend stated that the door of the Birnie's fridge was always left wide open so the children and the family dog could eat at will whenever hungry. In the early 1960s, Birnie's parents decided to move the family to another Perth suburb where he had met Catherine through mutual friends. At 15, David left school to become an apprentice jockey for Eric Parnham at a nearby Ascot racecourse. During his time there, he often physically harmed the horses and developed the tendencies of exhibitionist. Wow. On one particular night, David broke into the room of an elderly lady where he was boarding naked with stockings over his head and attempted to commit his first rape. By the time he was an adolescent, he had been convicted of several crimes and spent time in and out of jail for misdemeanors and felonies. As an adult, he was a known sex and pornography addict and paraphiliac. He was married to his first wife during his early 20s and had a baby daughter. In late 1986, David Birnie was employed at a local car wreckers. For more than a year, David and Catherine had practiced how to make their sexual fantasies of rape and murder come true. He was weeks away from committing his first horrific crime. Catherine Birnie. Catherine, also Harrison, was also born in 1951. She was 2 years old when her mother, Doreen, died, giving birth to her brother. I thought it was an interesting comparison with these two, with Bonnie and Clyde. Like Bonnie, Catherine never divorced her, like her ex-husband, Harrison, whom she had children with. And Bonnie never did either. I didn't know that. She was still married and even had a tattoo of like her ex's name on her body, which I'm sure, it was 1934. I went to a lot of trouble to get that and probably didn't have the things to get it off. But yeah, she never divorced him or married Clyde. Okay. So she was 2 years old when her mother, Doreen, died, giving birth to her brother, who died 2 days later. Unable to cope with her, her father, Harold, had sent her away to live with her maternal grandparents. At the age of 10, there was a custody dispute, which ended in Catherine's father gaining sole custody of Catherine. At the age of 12, she met David Birnie, and by the age of 14, she was in a relationship with David. Harold had begged Catherine on several occasions to leave David due to the fact that she was getting in trouble with the local police all the time. But the disapproval of their relationship only strengthened their union. Her time in prison throughout her adolescent years offered Catherine the chance to break away from David Birnie. Encouraged by a parole officer, Catherine began working for the McLaughlin family as a housekeeper. She married Donald McLaughlin on her 21st birthday. She and McLaughlin had 7 children. Their firstborn, a son, was struck and killed by a car in infancy. 4 weeks after the birth of her 7th child, she abandoned McLaughlin and began cohabitating with Birnie, who had tracked her down in hospital after she had had a hysterectomy. She had her surname legally changed by deed poll to match his and reportedly was emotionally dependent on him. David and Catherine murdered the following women: Mary Nielsen, Susan Candy, Noline Patterson, Denise Brown. And their final victim was Kate Moore, aged 17. Mary Nielsen, on October 6, 1986, 22-year-old student Mary Nielsen turned up at the Birnie house to buy some car tires for a better bargain. When arriving at the Birnie's house, she was gagged, chained to the bed, and raped by David while Catherine observed. Catherine asked David what turned him on the most, knowing that soon enough Mary would have to die. She was taken to Glen Eagles National Park near Albany Highway and begged for her life. She was raped again and strangled with a nylon cord, dropping dead at David's feet. He then stabbed her through the body, knowing that would speed up the decomposition, as he had read that in a book somewhere. They buried her in a shallow grave. The year after, she would have received her degree in psychology from the University of Western Australia. This murder was apparently unplanned. Susanna Candy. The second murder was on October 20th, so a pretty short time in between. The interval between is really short. When they abducted 15-year-old Susanna Candy, and she walked along the Sterling Highway in Claremont. Within seconds of being in the car, she had a knife at her throat and her hands were bound. She was taken back to the Birnie's house, where she was forced to send letters to her family saying she had run away to Queensland with her friends before being gagged, chained to the bed, and raped. After David Birnie had finished raping her, Catherine Birnie got into the bed with him. David Birnie then tried to strangle Candy with a nylon cord, but she became hysterical. The Birnies forced sleeping pills down her throat to calm her down, and once Susanna was asleep, David put the nylon cord around her neck, and Catherine tightened the cord slowly until she stopped breathing. They buried Susanna Candy in another shallow grave in the state forest. You know, this is the point when I was like, oh, top 10, looking at like just an article on other ones, because I was originally looking into the last one I'm going to talk about today. And that right there, like, that's exactly what Garrett Kurtz and Ashley Garth did to Nicole Bowen. And it was just just gave me a chill just like reading it again, and knowing like that's exactly how these two murdered Susanna Candy and the others. You know, they did it together, literally with a cord. Just it's basically these couples remind me of just pulsar stars that, you know, they're going to collide. You know, there's two dead stars that are orbiting, you know, and they get closer and closer, and they literally figure eight around each other in space. And eventually they're going to collide. And when they do, it literally is nuclear, and it creates a black hole, you know, theoretically. But yeah, you know, like that is all five of these couples, as well as Ashley Garth and Gary Kurtz. They just didn't have a chance to go on a murder spree as these others did. But yeah, just disturbing when you, the last couple I'm going to talk about is they were caught after their first kills, I should say. That's just man, you know, just when these people meet each other, the I wish that I could say that the five was hard to find, but unfortunately it was not, you know? Like I had to pick from a bunch more which ones that I wanted to talk about. Yikes. Noline, ooh, this one really made she really made Catherine mad, to the point where she spit on her grave. Well, when they took them after they were caught with the police, she literally was still so her own disgust with this victim that she spat on her burial site. Can't call it a grave. On November 1st, they saw 31-year-old Noline Patterson standing beside her car at the Canning Highway. She had run out of petrol while on her way home from her job as a bar manager at the Needlands Golf Club. Once inside the car, she had a knife held to her throat, was tied up, and told not to move. She was taken back to Morehouse Street, where David Birnie repeatedly raped her after she was gagged and chained to the bed. They had originally decided to murder her that same night, but David Birnie kept her prisoner in the house for 3 days, and there were signs that he had developed emotional feelings for Patterson. Quick to notice, a jealous Catherine made an ultimatum. David would have to kill Patterson or she would kill her herself. He immediately forced an overdose of sleeping pills down her throat and strangled her while she slept. What a freaking coward. He does look like a freaking twig. Like, he doesn't seem very, like, I'm not surprised. They took her body to the forest and buried it along with the others. Catherine Birnie reportedly got great pleasure in throwing sand in Patterson's face. Denise Brown. On November 5th, they abducted 21 years. So we got October, 2 in October, and then 2 more in November. They abducted 21-year-old Denise Brown as she was waiting for a bus at Sterling Highway. She accepted a lift from the Birnies at Knife Point. Denise was taken to the house in Willagee, chained to the bed, and raped. The following afternoon, she was taken to the Wanneroo Pine Plantation. Safely in the seclusion of the forest, David Birnie raped Denise Brown in the car while the couple waited for darkness. God. As they dragged the woman from the car, David Birnie assaulted her again and plunged a knife into Denise's neck while he was raping her. Convinced that the girl was dead, they dug a shallow grave and lay her body in it. But Brown sat up in the grave. David Birnie then grabbed an axe and struck her twice at full force on the skull with it before burying her body in the grave. Kate Moore, their final victim, and the only victim to survive their attacks, was 17-year-old. This girl was so smart. She ran naked and weeping into a grocery store on November 10th of 1986 and insisted on seeing the police. When the police arrived, she alleged that she had been abducted at knife point by a couple who had taken her back to their house and chained her to a bed, and that the man had repeatedly raped her while the woman observed. The next morning, while the man was at work, the woman unchained her and forced her to telephone her parents to say that she had spent the night at a friend's house and was okay. The woman then led her back into the bedroom, but left to answer the door before securing her. The girl then escaped out the window. She literally jumped out headfirst and landed on her head, got up and ran to, finally found somewhere that would help her. And the police didn't believe her. I'll see if this article talks about it at all. But David Birnie's home in handcuffs, the couple claimed that the girl had not been abducted, but had willingly come to the house to share a bong with the Birnies, and that all sexual activity had been consensual. It doesn't look like it's going to talk about it, but she also wrote her name like somewhere in the house, like she carved it into something so that she could, it's like she already knew they weren't going to believe her. How forking sad is that? She carved her name into something in the home so that when she got free, she would be able, they found that. And then they had evidence that she was, in fact, a prisoner in there. It's just like the fact that she had to go to all of that trouble. It's like this young girl already knew that she needed to prove her story if she was to survive. Because apparently you're only believed if you're murdered. And it seems to be that way in the United States as well. They were detained by police who tried to trick them into confessing to the crimes with intense interrogation. Well, in another article I read, it finally got to be dark, and it was like, it's getting dark. Like, just tell us where they are. And he was like, okay. And then then she decided that she better go ahead and confess too. And so then they led them to the bodies, and that is where it is said that she spit on the grave of the third victim, Noline Patterson. They both received life in prison. He killed himself after Catherine decided that she was done with him because she wanted to look good for parole board. And so she called it off because they had written like 2,000 letters to each other while in prison. And so when she called it off, he got really depressed, and then he killed himself. And she tried to get parole. Let's see. I remember. Yeah, this was pretty freaking awesome. The victim, the amazing one that like got away, Kate Moore, she literally campaigned and got the justice system to change this. And I think it is incredible. I would like to see that happen in the United States, but basically the law was that once old freaking Catherine Birnie at 64 is eligible for parole every 3 years. And even if she doesn't apply for it, after she finished serving her minimum 20-year non-parole term in 2007. So since 2007 until when was this written? Oh, it's Daily Mail, so who knows? Oh, yeah, here it is. So this was in 2016, April of 2016. So she went on a campaign, and they changed the law. And just like think about all the victims that every 3 years they have to worry about a parole board that's going to let their loved one, the person that murdered their loved one out. Like, this lady is pure evil. I'm sorry, but, like, I've done a lot of reading about her, and she's freaking a monster. So is he. Like, sex with his brother because his, like, marital like, are you kidding me? Eesh. That's her. She escaped. But I thought that was a pretty cool story. Well, just that there was some kind of a victory out of freaking these two horrendous individuals that just so happened to live next door to each other growing up as kids. Like, wow. You want to think this kind of stuff is rare, but it's just really isn't, unfortunately. And then the other article, it just had a lot of photos of the two. Wait. I think I already looked. This is not the right one. And these will be in the notes after the show. I'll upload them. I'll add them to it. There's something on my screen that's bugging me. Got to get it off of there. It won't come off. It's like some kind of static. I don't know. There's just something about her that just looks so freaking mean. I know, Tina. It's so sad. There he is, Mr. Nasty. Like, even with a smile, like, she just looks so freaking mean. Yet even in some of these, like, you can see, like, they're just, like, family photos where it's like, I always wonder about the people that took the photos. Did they ever think, and then looked upon the photos, like, fondly? Did they ever think, like, oh, wow, like, I definitely see? No. It's, like, after the fact is when people, see, there were signs that they had the potential to be these serial killers. Yeah. There's some of him, like, with, like, his daughter, just like in their dog, and it makes me mad because I'm pretty sure that's a Doberman. I love Dobies, so I was like, oh, definitely have to do that guy. And then just like him, like, just, this, it wouldn't, if he wasn't such a perverted psychopath, like, you wouldn't think a thing about these images, but yeah, these are the victims. So sad. Hard to kill. Wow. And that is the one that survived Kate Moore. Ugh. She just like gives me freaking chill. I don't usually get that way about looking at people. But man, she's just like, ugh, something about her. Yeah, she played in a play at the jail. Just with some of her children. Like, this was a mother. That's the thing. I don't know. I guess you want to think that they're separate from us humans, and when you're reminded of their humanity, you're reminded of the fact that anyone is really capable, and therefore, you only really know yourself in this world and what you're capable of. And sometimes people don't even know what they're capable of until it's already too late. It's just crazy. Right, Tina? It's really horrifying. I'll be right back. Unmute myself. Sorry. Forgot again. Where was I? I did make some like slides. We can look at them as we go. But, like here's their mug shots. I think this was one, obviously when he was younger. Here they are, just simple pictures. Like you wouldn't think anything of it, I mean, you might think something of this one. And then this is them after, obviously after they were shot 40 times each to death or whatever the count was. And here are the Birnies, David and Catherine. And there she is with two of her children, just looking totally psychopath, sexually motivated spree killer who was also a thrill killer. They killed for the fun of it. Just sick. That picture, I saw that other one and like the way he was looking at the little girl, and like this one is literally even worse. Like it just grosses me out. I don't like it. These are the 4 victims. They did not show a picture of Kate, but you saw her in that other article. And then we'll get to these next up on the sicko thrill killer couple list is Charlene Williams and Gerald Gallego. I thought this was an interesting website as well. This is a quote by Charlene. We had this sexual fantasy, see, so we just carried it out. I mean, like, it was easy and fun, and we really enjoyed it. So why shouldn't we do it? Okay. Wow. Gerald Armand Gallego and Charlene Adele Gallego were a team of serial killers, serial rapists, and abductors, sometimes nicknamed the Love Slave Killers or the Gallego Sex Slave Killers. Charlene Gallego was born in, I don't think I wanted her. Oh yeah, I did. Because it's their criminal, like their criminal, like their backgrounds before their criminal history is also, seeing where they came from is important when you're researching and looking into these types of minds, because it can help you understand, like if I had read a lot of this before getting into Garrett Kurtz and Ashley Garth, then I would have had a better understanding of what made them tick, and because of the similarities they share with the other killer, I feel like they killed for the thrill of it. I think that all of the other stuff was just bullshit, and they just, wanted to do it. Jealousy and the other angle of drugs or murder of Ray. At the core of it, after seeing the way that they both acted in court and just really researching who they were as individuals as best you can, as just a layperson, I think they just enjoyed it. I mean, the two had, like, they literally had, like, sex in the shower. This came out in court, like, after they had done this and then cleaned up, just like, it just terrible, gross. She wore her hat. She wore Nicole Bowen's hat while she was being interrogated. It's things like that that make you question the motive of, like, do we really know? Is there anyone else that thinks that there was a sexual motivation to their murders as well? And there's no anywhere that Ashley Garth was involved in Ray Hainish's murder. There is a connection at the place that he worked. Ashley Garth had worked there as well. Did they work there at the same time? I do not know. I wasn't able to confirm that, but just a little fun fact about them, because I have been thinking about Garrett Kurtz again, obviously, this week because of, the stuff that has come up with Delphi, Ron Logan. If it's not Ron, who's he going to cover for? Why were they interested? But then again, obviously they didn't find anything, or even if they did find something, then they weren't able to move that into prosecution. So, like, what does that mean? I don't know. Anyways, Charlene Gallego was born Charlene Adele Williams near Sacramento, California, on October 10th, 1956. Her father, Charles, was a respected entrepreneur who was the vice president of a supermarket chain. He and his wife, Mercedes, often traveled as part of their business life. Early school reports suggest Charlene was a quiet and shy child who had good attendance. Charlene's mother was hurt badly in a car accident. This was the reason she stopped traveling around with her husband. Charlene took over her mother's duties and would often travel with her father on business trips. It was there she was often praised by her father's clients for being an intelligent and well-spoken child. But by high school, Charlene was taking drugs and bragged to friends about a black lover. Charlene eventually married a young, wealthy man who was a heroin addict. He claimed that Charlene was obsessed with lesbian sex and begged him to have a threesome with her and a prostitute. She was also using a large number of drugs and didn't care about her appearance. Her first husband hated that Charlene's parents also intervened in their relationship. So the marriage failed and they got divorced. Charlene's next husband was a soldier who Charlene described as a mother's boy. She grew bored with him and they got divorced. Charlene then had an affair with a married man who soon ended the relationship after she asked if they could have sex with his wife. After the breakup, she attempted suicide but survived. It was not long after that she met Gerald. In another article that I found, it did state that her father would rape her on these business trips that they went on together. So she literally became her mother when they were out of town. And that is so messed up. Gerald Gallego was born on July 17th, 1946. His mother and her numerous boyfriends had beaten him during his formative years, and when his mother became a prostitute, he was abused by some of her clients. He was often left hungry and dirty and was always pleading to be held and hugged. His natural father, who had played no part in his life, was executed for killing two policemen. Like Charlene, Gerald had failed as a lover and spouse and married numerous women, but left them after they ran out of money. He also started sexually abusing his daughter. Gerald liked rough sex, and Charlene responded to this. At first, their sex life was so good that they couldn't get enough of each other. Gerald particularly enjoyed sodomizing Charlene, but she later said in court that she hated the painful experience. Okay. Killing. Charlene was sexually submissive. Sexual submission relies strongly on conversational power play. Sorry. Ugh. The submissive often indicates to the dominant party that what he or she enjoys. So, in a way, it is the submissive that is in charge. Charlene was disliked in work for being too flirtatious with male coworkers, but she wanted a man who would take charge and be dominant. Gerald appeared streetwise and very masterful. Streetwise and very masterful was just some of the same things that were said about the other two. I did read that about David Birnie as well, that he did really well and he was kind of a smooth talker in his job. I think he sold tires, so it's just kind of crazy. But they were, same with Bonnie and Clyde. They very poor, very all but like Charlene, who just had the most effed up. I mean, I can't imagine. So just a lot of sexual perversion has created her need to keep fulfilling that as an adult, and why she became what she became. And then the other four, 5 are basically very similar in their history. And again, here the two pulsar stars collide with these two sickos. Anyways, where were we? After they had been living together for a few months, Gerald brought home a 16-year-old dancer, and they had a threesome together. He made sure that the two women only touched him and not each other. After he returned home from work, however, he found Charlene and the dancer in bed together. Enraged, he threw the girl out an open window, then hit Charlene. He then withheld sex from her, saying he had become impotent. In reality, though, he most likely found her unattractive because she'd shown she wasn't fully dependent on him for sexual kicks. Gerald soon sodomized his now 14-year-old daughter and her friend, and did so with Charlene's knowledge. It is unclear if she was in the room with them or just in the same apartment, but evidently she didn't find anything immoral in what Gerald had done. This suggests she had the lack of conscience found in a sociopath. With Gerald working as a bartender, Charlene suspected he was sleeping with his customers as he was now disinterested in her sexually. When the couple had been together for a year, he said that he needed a pair of love slaves to turn him on and asked Charlene to procure them. Some sources suggest she agreed because she saw his word as law and that she only wanted to please him. But no one is completely self-effacing. I do agree with that. So it's more likely she wanted to satisfy her own strong lesbian desires and totally control. I don't like that it's in red. That's the only thing about this website. Like, it hurts my freaking eyes. Desires and totally control a helpless, tied-up girl. Whatever her motivation, she agreed to lure teenage victims to their certain deaths. Capture and trials. The Gallegos were apprehended on November 17th of 1980. They were eventually found guilty of their crimes, and Gerald was executed by gas chamber. He died of cancer, however, before his sentence could be carried out. Charlene had taken a plea deal and testified against him in court and only received 16 years and 8 months in prison. She completed her sentence and was released. Yeah, you heard that right. Modus Operandi. The Gallegos targeted women. Their first victims were in their teens, but the later ones were in their early 20s, while Virginia Mocco was in her mid-30s. More often than not, they abducted 2 at a time. Interesting. They would abduct them from public or semi-public places, often at gunpoint with a .357 Magnum, with Charlene acting as the lure, and take them into their van where Gerald would rape them repeatedly before killing them in various ways, usually by shooting them with a .25 Beretta or bludgeoning them with some incidental object. Linda Aguilera and Virginia Mocco, both of whom were abducted alone, were strangled. Known victims. September 10th, 1978, Placer County, California. Rhonda Sheffier and Kippy Vaught both were sexually abused, raped, bludgeoned with a tire iron, then fatally shot in the head. June 24th, 1979, Reno, Nevada. Brenda Judd and Sandy Coley both were forced to perform sexual acts with each other and then beaten with a shovel and a hammer. Brenda was 14 and Sandy was 13. Rhonda was 17 and Kippy was 16. In 1980, April 4th, Citrus Heights, California, Stacy Redican and Karen Twiggs both were sexually abused and beaten with a hammer. Stacy Redican was 17 and Karen was 17 as well. June 7th, Port Oxford, Oregon. Linda Aguilera, 21, was 4 months pregnant. My God. Bludgeoned with a rock, strangled, buried alive, and left for dead. July 16th, Clarksburg, California, Virginia Mocco, 34, raped and strangled with a nylon fishing cord. November 7th, Sacramento, California, Craig Miller and Mary Sowers, 22. He was shot 3 times in the head. Mary Sowers was 21, and she was raped repeatedly and shot 3 times. Wow. I would like to get a report on Linda. Like, did we read that somewhere else? That she survived? And I just forgot. Man, sick. And there's a really good, I can't show these otherwise, like I'll get copyrighted. So, you know, I prefer not to get copyrighted since, I do this work for free. So when they copyright your thing, then you can't even make, it's not like it's a lot. But you can't, they don't monetize your lives if you show these videos. So I prefer not to show them because it is nice to make just a little bit, just a little bit. It's a lot of work. And not that I think I'm going to get rich or that I ever would, but it's a lot of work doing these cases and putting these shows together. So I'm not going to show that, but it was really good. So definitely check that out. And again, I will put it in the show notes. And then you can see Charlene, after she did an interview after she was released, and I don't know, like it just gives you that vibe of like she's still getting off on this. Like, I don't know. You guys will have to watch it and just like let me know if you got the same feeling as I did. What she's been up to since she was released. Yeah, it's disgusting. Yeah, you can watch that and find out what old Charlene's been up to. The next two are Gwendolyn Graham and Cathy Wood. These two, wow. So, trying to remember which one I was going to read. I should have put it next to them, but oh yeah, I think I'm just going to read the wiki. It's kind of short and sweet. But I don't know if you can see, it's a tiny little picture, but there they are. Gwendolyn is on the top and Cathy is on the bottom. And not in that's in the picture. This came out weird. But they were known as the Lethal Lovers. So, are American serial killers convicted of killing 5 elderly women in Walker, Michigan, a suburb of Grand Rapids in 1987. They committed their crimes in the Alpine Manor nursing home, where they both worked as nurses' aides. Again, would either one of these two women have killed these 5 elderly people if they had not have just so happened to work at the same hospital at the exact same moment in space and time? It makes you wonder. The two women met at the Alpine Manor nursing home shortly after Graham had moved to Michigan from Texas. They quickly became friends and then lovers in 1986. 2 years later, they both were facing murder charges for allegedly smothering 5 elderly patients as part of a love bond. The details of the murders came almost entirely from accounts to criminal justice authorities by Wood, whose murder charges were reduced by a plea agreement so she could testify against Graham in Graham's trial for first-degree murder. However, Wood's accounts and her self-portrayal as Graham's pawn were later brought into serious question by award-winning journalist Lowell Coffiel. Hold on just a second. Okay, sorry. In his 1992 true crime book, Forever in 5 Days. According to Wood's account, in January 1987, Graham entered the room of a woman who had Alzheimer's disease and smothered her with a washcloth as Wood acted as her lookout. The woman The woman was too incapacitated to fight back, and thus became the pair's first victim. The woman's death appeared to be natural, so an autopsy wasn't performed. Wood claimed Graham murdered the patient to relieve her tension. Each felt that the secret of the murder would prevent the other from leaving, thus cementing their bond. Over the next few months, Graham murdered 4 more Alpine Manor patients. Wood alleged many of the victims, whose ages ranged from 65 to 97, were incapacitated and suffered from Alzheimer's disease. Woods testified that the couple turned the selection of victims into a game, first trying to choose their victims by their initials to spell murder. But when that became difficult, they began counting each murder as a day, as in the phrase, I will love you forever and a day. A poem by Wood to Graham and introduced in the trial concluded, "You'll be mine forever in 5 days." Wood also testified that Graham took souvenirs from the victims, keeping them to relive the deaths. However, no such souvenirs were ever discovered by police. Wood also portrayed Graham as being sexually, physically, and emotionally dominant in their relationship. The couple eventually broke up when Graham began dating another female nursing aide who also worked at Alpine Manor. Graham then moved to Texas with the woman and began to work in a hospital taking care of infants. Like, hopefully somebody checked there. The murder investigation began in 1988 after Wood's ex-husband, who she had told about the murders, went to the police like a year later. No one no one believed them. They told all kinds of people they worked with that they were killers, and those people were like, yeah, they told us that, but we just thought they were joking. They dug up like 40 bodies because, that had died while these two were working together. And I think they had like 8 of them were not what they appeared to be after autopsy, and they convicted them on 5. I mean, just sick. The Walker Police Department extensively questioned Cathy Wood in a series of interviews. She incrementally leaked out her version of the homicides, portraying Graham as the mastermind and hands-on killer. The investigation led to the exhumation of 2 nursing home victims who had not been cremated, but when medical examination failed to reveal, I guess the other article, one of them is not right. That's always why you want to fact checked your information. So one of these is not correct. So we'll have to do a third source to see if it matches. Of a homicide not entirely unusual in a smothering case, the county medical examiner nevertheless ruled the deaths homicides, basing it on the interviews Wood had given to the police. Warrants were issued for the arrest of Wood and Graham on December 4th and 5th, 1988. Graham and Wood were arrested and charged with 2 murders. Wood was apprehended in Walker, Graham in Tyler, Texas. During the trial, Wood plea bargained her way to a reduced sentence, claiming that it was Graham who planned and carried out the killings while she served as a lookout and distracted. Yeah, right. Nobody believes you. Graham maintained her innocence, testifying that the alleged murders were part of an elaborate mind game by Wood. Despite the lack of physical evidence, the jury ultimately was swayed by the testimony of Graham's new girlfriend, who revealed that Graham had confessed to 5 killings. So she confessed to her girlfriend as well. So, okay. It's looking like they definitely did do it. November of 1989, Graham was found guilty of 5 counts of murder and 1 count of conspiracy to commit murder, and the court gave her 5 life sentences. Graham is housed in the Women's Huron Valley Correctional Facility in Pittsfield, Charter Township in Michigan. Wood was charged with 1 count of second-degree murder and 1 count of conspiracy to commit second-degree murder. She was sentenced to 20 years on each count and has been eligible for parole since March 2nd, 2005. She was in Tallahassee, Florida. Yeah. They described Wood as both a coercive and seductive pathological liar who delighted in wreaking havoc in the lives of others. Does that sound familiar? Sounds like Greeno to me. Like female version. Forever in 5 days. I would like to read this. Presents evidence that Wood planned the first murder after she found Graham with another woman. She involved Graham as an insurance policy to keep her from ever leaving her. I had some borderline histrionic personality disorder, if I ever heard it. When Graham left her anyway after the series of alleged killings, Wood was willing to put herself in legal jeopardy by disclosing to police to exact her revenge. You know, and that whole revenge thing is like, you think that sounds like why, and you know, that wouldn't be, but that's exactly what I think, you know, like, it's not exactly the same, but with Anthony DeBia, you know, he's willing to kill his own son to get revenge. And it sounds so bizarre to those words just like say out loud to us like normal humans with normal brains. But to these people like this, they will, you know, like you're not going to get away that easily. Like you're not going to one up me. You'll see what I will do to you. You know, like she was so obsessed with her. Like, this is what I think. I think that they both enjoyed this sexually. And some of the other things that I haven't talked about, like I haven't read from, they were so turned on by murdering of the elderly, helpless, dementia, Alzheimer's patients that they couldn't wait to get home. And sometimes they would just have sex in the closet. And these are things like there's interviews with old Catherine, and you can watch them for yourself. While I do agree she's manipulative and probably a liar, they have the accounts of the people from the nursing home, the staff, the husband, the girlfriend, you know, like, I do think it's weird that I literally read another article that said that they maybe it said they dug into 40 other, hold on. Let me see if I can find it. Hey, Dan, how are you? I did a little bit. There's just so many that I had to narrow it down to who I wanted to talk about, and I didn't pick them. It was in Walker, Michigan in 1987, where a pair of lesbians made death a sexual game. Gwendolyn Gail Graham, 23, and Catherine May Wood, 24, worked together at the Alpine Manor nursing home. Graham was a nurse's aide, and Wood was her immediate superior. Wood had divorced and gained an enormous amount of weight, so she was hungry for a friend. Is that like a play on words? When she met Graham, they immediately hit it off and soon became lovers. It was Graham who first broached the subject of murder. They practiced sexual asphyxia to achieve greater orgasms. So Wood later claimed she thought Graham was kidding. Yet the linked pain and pleasure of their sexual games became threaded with the idea of cruelty. Just talking about murder got them both excited. They started killing patients in January and continued for 3 months, picking patients to kill whose initials would end up spelling murder. Graham called this the murder game. Posting Wood as sentry. She started with several elderly women, but but they struggled so hard, she had to back off. Yet they did not register a complaint, and in fact, most of the patients liked these two women. Then Graham went into the room of a woman suffering from Alzheimer's who would not be able to fight her off. She smothered the woman with a washcloth. In the weeks that followed, she moved on to another and then another. There were times when the act of killing so excited her that she and Wood went to an unoccupied room for sex. Graham even took items off of the victim's jewelry or dentures to help her to relive what she had just done, and she found enormous emotional release in murder. When they washed the bodies down as part of the postmortem routine, they grew even more excited. Then they got bolder. They told colleagues what they were doing, because even the confessions added to their heightened sexual drive. But their accounts were dismissed as side jokes. Graham showed 3 aides her shelf of souvenirs, and still no one stopped them. Then Graham wanted Wood to take a more active role to prove her love. She would have to kill one of the patients herself. Wood wasn't ready for this, so she got transferred to another shift. Graham took up with another woman, and then they left Michigan to go work at a hospital in Texas taking care of infants. A terrified Wood confessed everything to her former husband, but took him over a year to take action. Finally, he called the police. Of the 40 patients who had died in that 3-month period, 8 seemed suspicious enough for further investigation. Then they settled on 5 and arrested both women. And then, so I don't know. It was written by Elizabeth Wench in, the copyright was 1995 to 2005. It doesn't. We'd have to read some more, maybe dig through newspapers.com. But I thought that this little quote here, she's a serial. So this is this is on YouTube. It'll be in the show notes as well. It was really good documentary. I would definitely watch it again and watch it like more closely, because it just interested me hearing it. So it would be even more interesting to actually visually view it. Retired Walker Police Sergeant Roger Kalanak, who helped investigate the murders of the Alpine Manor nursing home in 1987, fears the 57-year-old Wood would kill again. She's a serial killer and she could do it again, and most of them do, he said. I believe that Cathy Wood was the mastermind, and she was the one that was pulling strings on Gwendolyn Graham. Gwendolyn Graham handled the dirty work, and Cathy Wood was the brains behind it. Now, straight from the detective's sergeant's mouth. So, and then it has some stuff from a reporter that had interviewed her back then, and then went to her home because she's out, just living a life in I think it was Fort Mill. Went to Tallahassee to release, then followed her to her new home in Fort Mill. Wow. Crazy. And our last couple, Benjamin BJ and Erica Seafort. These were the 2 that I was talking about with the he was an ex-Navy SEAL. So I'm going to take a quick break, and then we will finish up with these guys.
microphone dead. Don't step to me, newbie, I could truly be moody. I could have played the fucking Grinch in the movies. I've been a part-time shadow cat. Part-time, that is not a guy that I would ever want to try to battle rap. Snap, crackle, pop, mind fried to a crisp. Make an MC into a wide-eyed lunatic. Chill, chill, for me. 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 For me. Yo, give it a stage in a minute, I'ma eat you. El profesor's in the house, let me teach you. I could defeat you with two hands tied and have you waking in the hospital like, who am I? And who are you? Who are they? What is this? You wouldn't believe how someone react to this shit. The mind slip, and speaking in tongues. Fly ink, GVA, that's how we get it done. 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 Fly ink, GVA, that's how we get it done.
Quick break. Actually, you know what? I really don't want to short, like it's already been an hour and 40 minutes. Like I'm going to just do this last one because it was really the one that I was only going to do originally, but then I got into the psychology of it, and then it led me to these other 5, and I just had to talk about them. So I'm going to, and I haven't even talked to the chat yet, so I'm going to do that, and I'm going to go ahead and show the slides of those 5 killer couples, though, so you can see all of them. And I'm just like, again, of like what we see in the mug shots versus like what we see, you know, in just like photos that someone else has clearly taken of these people, and just like just to show you that they are humans. These are actual people that could live next door, you know, like no one is above being the victim of a murderer, and hopefully a lot of people are above being a murderer or an accomplice. But this is Bonnie and Clyde. There's Bonnie and Clyde just posing for the camera, looking all cute. Not super cute, but still looks like they're both having fun with this shotgun here. And this was their demise. They were ambushed and shot to death on a trip because Bonnie was going back to get some medical treatment. She was seeing a doctor on like a farm near where another accomplice, but it was like a family farm of, I think it was Clyde's. And they knew like the doctor. And so I think she'd gotten hurt in a car accident. That, and like just some fun facts. Clyde cut off 2 of his toes, like literally with an axe, so that he could be transferred to a different prison. Bonnie wrote poetry, and I can't remember anymore, but just some fun facts. I'll put the link to that in the description after the show as well. This is David and Catherine Birnie, two absolute disgusting human beings that found each other, just like Bonnie and Clyde. Here she is, just with a couple of her children. She had 7. Looking all normal and not like I don't know. To me, she just doesn't look normal at all. That haircut, I've seen that in many of our family photos of my mom on my mom's side. My dad's side, it was only all boys, so there's not many women in those. But my mom's side, like, I don't know, just like the familiarity of the black and white photo, the short pixie bangs. You know, even this little girl has the short pixie bangs, even though. And then this, I don't even want to look at that one as it's gross. But that was, you know, like, I wouldn't think it was gross if I didn't know that he was like a sexual sadistic, like, it seemed like he had like, what's that called? Where, hey, Tech Death, they, nymphomania. He seemed like he was a nymphomaniac as well, because when he didn't have sex for like 3 days, he was asking his brother, and literally like didn't care that his brother said no, and still tried it with his own brother who was staying with them. Like, had sex with his mother. I read that in another article. But yeah, so these were their 4 victims. Their last victim got away and went on to finally get some laws in Australia changed to where their parole, like when they're up for parole every 3 years, that if they don't apply, then they don't go before the parole board. So there is Charlene and Gerald Gallego, 2 more sexual sadistic crazies. Here they are, looking all cute and normal. Just, you know, these down here are probably some senior pictures, and here they are out on a date night, you know, just posing for the camera, looking super cute and totally not like psychopathic sexual sadists. But in fact, they were, and they killed all of these women. And oh, these were 2 more of their victims. Wait. Oh, I think I forgot to put their mugshots in here. I bet that is their other victims. Yeah, because they did kill a man. So I'm going to have to verify if that's them or not. I'm going to have to find out what they look like then. Here is Gwendolyn and what was her name? Cathy Wood. Gwendolyn Graham and Cathy Wood. They were another couple. Like, they worked in a freaking nursing home and killed 5 patients, so for their sexual pleasure. Just really nasty. There's them looking all completely normal, not like just cute and innocent. I'm not so sure about her. Old Cathy looks kind of crazy even there. This was like a photo from her interviews. And these are the next 2 that I'm going to talk about separately. Erica and Benjamin Seafort. Here they are. Just look how cute, you know, just looking completely normal. Here she is. Looks like she's hanging out with some friends from high school, probably. Yeah, they don't look like anything other than just the couple next door, you know. These were their victims. And they had another set that got away. And now I gotta go and try to find the pictures of Gerald and Charlene. Oh, wait, I showed. Well, did I not have that in there? I thought I did. I showed that one, didn't I? Yeah, that was in there. I guess I just don't know if that was a picture of them looking all normal, or was that because they kind of like picked victims that looked like themselves, which is kind of creepy. Well, here they are posing for the camera, looking, it's pretty normal. But see, this has that picture, so I just assumed it was them, but it very well could be that other couple. I'm not sure. See how this has them in the lineup, and they did kidnap a couple, so that could be their like another victim. So I'm not sure. I don't like having things like that wrong though, like, because that's important. Like if you're going around saying that the victims are, say these are the victims and you're saying that they're the killers, like, it's not okay. So that's why I wanted to try to, that you can definitely tell is them in that picture. That one, I'm not so sure. It kind of looks like that's these two. You see what I'm saying? Yeah, see, like, I think that is, see, there they are. That's Fred and Rosemary West. That's the Burdines. That is Gwendolyn and Cathy. And I didn't do any of those ones. But yeah. Crazy. Yeah, I think that's their victim. Okay. Hi, Tina. Glad you're here tonight. Thank you for being here, and thank you for being a member. Dan, a new member, thank you for being here. An interesting presentation, and well done. Well, thank you. Thank you for smashing the like. Hey, Monica, thank you for being a member and for being here and for reminding people to hit the like. I appreciate it. Hopefully everything was good, so I don't think I had any mods in here tonight. Hey, David. How are you? Hello, Otto Man. Hope you're doing good. Chris. Hello, Buckle Bunny. I don't think I've seen your name before, so welcome to the channel. Lance. Matt. Lynn. Hello. Lori. Hi. I think I missed you on the first time around. Yeah. That was a lot. That was a lot of, and you said that earlier. Oh, I bet you were talking about from, Greeno. Yeah. And Professor Pug, who had company tonight and couldn't be here. Well, I appreciate you. You are always here and always supportive, and I hope you had a good time with your family or your friends. Hey, Tech Death. Hope you're well. So that's all I have for you guys tonight. I appreciate you being here with me, and I will, I don't know when, this week's kind of busy. I've got, birthday and my child's birthday and trying to get the last things done last week of school. And, then also my daughter's surgery is fastly approaching. So I still have a lot to get done for that. And this restocking everything and getting everything set up. And that's, she still has to see a few of her doctors still in the next 2 weeks too. So it's just like a lot. But I'm around, and I will be getting to that last story on my next show. So I hope you guys all have a great night, and I will talk to you later.